to be a Red Arrow, you must be a fast jet pilot, you must be above average, and you must have a certain amount of hours under your belt.
You know, so many parents, teachers, careers officers steal kids' dreams. Now, they don't do it with any bad intent. Yeah. That's not where they're trying to go.
There are thousands of people that want to be pilots, that's great. And there are probably half of those who are capable of doing it. But it's the actual dedication to it that you've got to stick with it.
We don't urge them to do something. If they've got a passion, let's work with that passion. If they haven't, and Charlie Mullins said this in the podcast the other week, is that he believes they should either have a job, go to university, or go into a government-funded workplace apprenticeship.
So, you know, I love listening to people. I love it, and I don't get offended. I don't mind what people say because, you know, advice is free, right? And you can take it or you can leave it.
Welcome back to another episode of Success as a System. I'm here, it's a bit echoey, we're in an aircraft hangar. I'm here with Andy Offer, OBE. Thanks for agreeing to come on. Well, what can I tell you about Andy? Andy is CEO of the Blades, the world's only aerobatic airline, but he's been Red One. That means he was the leader of the Red Arrows, world famous, world renowned, a former RAF fast jet pilot, 22, was a qualified flying instructor, works specialise in the business in oil spill response, has a contract for the UK's search and rescue, and works with military to do some special operations as well. We're going to get into all of that and more. But first, Andy, tell us about Andy Offer. You know, what was growing up like? Where was growing up? Yeah. And tell us a bit about your background, siblings, and life as a kid.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, I suppose for me, I grew up in a normal, working class family. My mother was a bookkeeper. My father was a printer. We lived initially in North London, moved into Hertfordshire. I went to a normal school. I was fortunate to get an academic scholarship to a private school. I didn't really like it, but that's what I did. And then I went to school. I wouldn't say I loved school, but I could do school. And actually, all the way through my kind of school life, I had a fascination with airplanes. But I've got no military background. None of my, I don't think any of my family were in the services apart from in the war. And so really, I didn't have any connection with the military. But my mother absolutely knew I had a passion for aviation and dragged me into the Cambridge careers office when I was probably 14 or 15. I remember it so well. I walked into the careers office, and the sergeant who sat there said, "What do you want to be, son?" I said, "I want to be a pilot." He said, "Yeah, they all say that." And he said, "But realistically, what do you want to be?" I said, "No, I want to be a pilot." And he said, "Okay, right." And then we started a process, and that process really consists of as an individual learning about the forces. I didn't really know much about the military. I certainly didn't know much about the Royal Air Force. I knew a lot about airplanes. I was very lucky, read up, just did my research, went through, the kind of careers progression, ended up going to Biggin Hill to do selection for officer and aircrew selection. You have to be an officer to be aircrew, which I didn't realise also, but I do now. So I did that, and I was fortunate enough to get, offered direct entry pilot into the Air Force at the age of 17.
So let me unpick that a little bit. I mean, it's interesting how many successful people to me say, I was lucky, but you were doing the research, you knew all the planes at that point, there wasn't much people couldn't tell you because it was a passion.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that the lucky bit, to be a pilot in the Royal Air Force, you've got to have 20/20 vision. You've got to have the right ergonomics. Your legs can't be too long, you can't be too short, you can't be too wide, you can't have hay fever. So that's the lucky bit. You've got to be able to rub your tummy, pat your head, as well as have the right. That's the lucky bit, all right? The rest of it, you can make your own luck. So you're absolutely right. I'm in that actual interview with the guy, who said, I think you want to be a pilot. They all say that. The first thing he said to me, there were two pictures on the wall, one left, one right. He said, "What's that?" And it was a Buccaneer, which is a Royal Air Force plane. And I said, "Oh yeah, it's a Buccaneer." He went, "Oh, that's interesting." And he said, "What's the other one?" And it was actually a Tornado. I said, "It's a Tornado." He said, He said, "What? Can you tell me what the swept wing of the Tornado means?" And I actually knew. And he was like, "Okay, right, okay."
I don't even know that terminology.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, but the point is, if you like, I was a bit of an aviation geek, if you like. Yeah. And so therefore he went, "Oh, actually, your aircraft knowledge is really quite good. You've got to have a level of academic ability as well. That's a lucky bit, whether you can work hard, but you've got to, when you do your aptitude tests at Biggin Hill, they're all about have you got natural aptitude, not can you learn, right? So that's the lucky bit. So I feel lucky that I was gifted enough to have those attributes, but you have to work hard at them to make them work for you.
But and I also want to go back to the conversation with the careers officer.
Yeah.
Because, so many parents, teachers, careers officers steal kids' dreams. Now, they don't do it with any bad intent. Yeah. That's not where they're trying to go. Or they just lazily stereotype. Yeah. So, the podcast that we put out today actually was a guy called Shaz Nawaz, very successful financial guy. But because he was Asian, the careers officer actually said to him, and this is going back some time, but it doesn't make it right, said to him, do your mum and dad own a corner shop? This assumption, or what can you do? I can play an instrument. Oh, you should be a musician. It's really lazy. Yeah. And then when someone says, I'm going to be a pilot, they steal the dream. And when you said that, it reminded me of Sarah Greene, a Radio 1 DJ, interviewing David Beckham at the age of 11. He was already playing for England under 18s or something. And she famously said to him, so what are you going to do when you're older then? And he said, I'm going to play for England. Yeah. And she said, I thought, oh, God bless him, Yeah, but what if it doesn't work out? No, I'm going to play for England.
I kind of agree. I'd say the same to my children. I think that certainly at my day, our day, if you like, the education system sent you down a path. Yeah. And to go off that path was unusual. I think it's much broader now. But, I was passionate. My school reports all just said the same thing, If he only dedicated himself like he should to where he should, i.e. to what we consider to be academic importance, then he'd do really well. But, I liked football, I liked sport, I like going out, I like socialising, I like fixing my car, I like fixing all of those things I like doing. I was not purely academic. But actually, for the career that I followed, those rounded attributes are really important. I think that's true today.
Yeah, and a good base level of education to me is like a good foundation to a house. You get a good foundation in, you can build anything on it. You can even change what's built above it if the foundation is solid. So get the foundation. But what I'm really conscious of is, and you use the word that comes up again and again and again and again, I was passionate. Don't ever miss out on kids' passion. If you can see that passion, it is a thing you can see. Their eyes light up, they're excited the minute if they see an aeroplane. And when you see a passion verging on obsession, feed it, support it. Tell them you need to do your maths, you need to do this, you need to do that. But so many parents, teachers, careers officers, inadvertently steal kids' dreams, and it's really sad to see.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think the other point that I learned, which was something that my parents taught me, it's about work ethic. Yeah. Because I think, if you got a job, my job was a vocational job. I joined the Royal Air Force to be a pilot. That really means you've got to be prepared to go to war if necessary, et cetera, et cetera. That's a vocational job. But to get that job, there are thousands of people that want to be pilots. That's great. And there are probably half of those who are capable of doing it. But it's their actual dedication to it that you've got to stick with it.
But I think that's true of most things in life.
Agreed.
It's easy to do the basics, but if you want to be at the best of your game, you've got to be dedicated. Yeah. Now, when I was reading out the sort of 22 qualified flying instructor, at what age did you have your license, your pilot's license?
Yeah, so talking about that journey through to becoming a Royal Air Force pilot, and when I was doing that journey or looking at that journey, one of the schemes that the Royal Air Force did was a thing called a flying scholarship. No commitment to the Royal Air Force. The Royal Air Force paid for you to go and learn to fly somewhere, right? And the reason they did it really was it sounds really decadent today, but the truth is what they actually did was weed out a load of people early. So I went and did a flying scholarship at the age of 17, literally finished my A-levels, went straight to a place called Stapleford Tawney in North London, just inside the M25, near Romford. And I did 30 hours flying, and I absolutely loved it. I had my license by the time I was 17. Wow. And then I joined the Air Force post that. So that was the kind of realization for me. It's like, this is exactly what I thought it would be. It's enjoyable, it's hard work, it's rewarding, all the things I wanted. And I thought, right, that's for me. And then after that, you go into the real system, which is, of course, officer training first, which is 6 months on its own before you start flying training. And then flying training is, it is effectively a degree. a very specialised degree.
But I guess if you did all of that at 17, that's why you could be so qualified at 22. One of the guys, we had a podcast with Dave Potts, who's the CEO for Morrison's, 110,000 staff and what have you. He said he was running Tesco's biggest store at the time at, I think it was 20 or 21. I said, how'd you do that? He said, well, if you don't go to university, by the time most people are coming out of university, I've been working for 4-5 years. Yeah. That's a career almost in some cases. So, and one of the things that I'm a big believer of and talking about a lot lately is, we've got a lot of people who are finishing standard school 16, 17. They don't know what they want to do, but the danger is we don't urge them to do something. If they've got a passion, let's work with that passion. If they haven't, and Charlie Mullins said this in the podcast the other week, is that he believes they should either have a job, go to university, or go into a government-funded workplace apprenticeship. In whatever field, because you can do retail, hospitality, care, nursing, or a trade. But at least at an early age, they get a taste of working for a wage, earning an income, getting a qualification, and getting some early experience. I mean, I think I do wonder these days if, because so many people go to university, we look at a 17-year-old and think they're still a kid. But actually,
well, I think for me personally,
you were a pilot.
But the balance is, I think the general, more and more people go to university now than they did in my day, 15% to 50, whatever it is now, right? So more people go to university. And when I joined the Royal Air Force, I was in the minority, being straight from school as opposed to a university graduate. The benefit of that is all the things that I've done. I went through flying training, was selected immediately to be a flying instructor at 22. I joined the Red Arrows at 20. I can't remember, 28. Right, I was a leader at Arrows at 30. All those things were young, but it's because I joined straight from school. But the difficulty, of course, is some of it was tough because as a young man, 18 years old, right, in a high pressure environment, which is what it is. High pressure environment, high workload, quite a lot of stress. It's quite a lot for a young man to take. And I remember thinking, this is really hard. It's probably a little bit easier if you've got a little bit more maturity. But then what you reap in later years is
exactly that.
If you can cope with that, then actually you're on the front foot going forward. And that's what.
And I think that's right. And you don't want to burn someone out or put them under so much pressure it buckles them. By the same token, you get the opposite of that, which is now called snowplow parents, where they clear the way all the time, make sure the kids don't even have to trudge through the snow in case they get the little pinkies cold or something. And I know that we're talking two extremes here, but if you can accept that pressure, stress is okay as long as it's not pushed beyond a level of ability to endure.
And the things we run an apprenticeship scheme in an engineering firm in Lasham, and it's the best thing, right? Because if they want to be engineers and they start young, they're going to fly, and they have the ability to fly because that bucket of experience that you're pushing in is worth so much more as long as you know what you want to do.
Well, and clearly you did. So take me from 22, flying, so 17 pilot, in the RAF, dream job, flight instructor at 22, Red Arrows at 28. How did you go so quickly to be a Red Arrow, which I think, British, we're proud of them because they're a British squad, but, they're recognised globally as the best, probably.
Again, there's luck and ability, right? All three attributes, I would say. So, one is the luck bit. To be a Red Arrow, you must be a fast jet pilot, you must be above average, and you must have a certain amount of hours under your belt, if you like. So, I joined the Air Force young. I was a flying instructor on my first tour. That's good and it's bad. I didn't want to be a flying instructor, wanted to go to the front line, but I ended up being a flying instructor. They call it creamed off because they take the people who've come top and send them back to being flying instructors. From there, I went through the flying training system after my flying instructor's course. When I was a flying instructor, while I was a flying instructor, I won a thing called the Wright Jubilee, which meant I was a jet provost display pilot in 1989. I was 23. Fantastic opportunity, but kind of introduced me to display flying. I then went back through the system, became a frontline. So as you go through flying training, you get selected to fly fast jets or helicopters or multi-engines. I was fortunate to be selected, or I worked hard to be selected as a fast jet pilot. I flew Harriers, and then you must be rated when you're on the front line as a Harrier pilot as above average, which I was fortunately done. That happened to me, and then I could apply to the Red Arrows. And I applied to the Red Arrows in my day, about 40 or 50 applicants every year to the Red Arrows, and they select 3. And it's a week-long selection procedure, which consists of flying test, so flying ability, an interview, which means, you should be able to research for an interview, but really it's being with the team for a week. And at the end of that week, because you all live in each other's pockets for 3 years.
I mean, when you're flying tip to tip at
Correct.
How fast is it you're going?
400 miles an hour.
400 miles an hour, you've got to be a team.
You're a team.
An
And that's true of any sport, any high performance team, that's a key attribute. So, that journey was really quick, and it felt really quick. It felt like 5 minutes. So, as you say, I joined the Royal Air Force aerobatic team in 1995 for my first tour. And then, so at the end of that, 1998, roughly, I'm 32 years old, having done, 4 tours, flying instructor, 2 frontline tours, and a Red Arrows tour. I achieved, in my view, wow, what else can I do?
Yeah, you climbed your Everest almost.
Yeah, and I was proud, but also I felt like I worked hard. And then actually, before I left the Red Arrows, the way that the selections for the leader works is anyone that's been in the Red Arrows, that gets promoted to a certain rank.
Because I remember reading you went something like Red 2, Red 4, Red 8, Red 1. Or
yeah, so the team, the Red ones at the front in my day, and the other guys are team members. So, and I was a team member like everybody else, and they're all the same, the 8 other pilots. The leader, though, is selected having been in the team, having been promoted to the next rank. He is then chosen by kind of the Air Force board, if you like, to represent the Royal Air Force lead, because it's all then about, whilst flying is important, it's much more about presenting properly the key ethos of the Royal Air Force through the Red Arrows aerobatic team, and that's the job of the leader. And then I got that job before I left the team. I left the team, went away for a bit, came back, but I already knew I had the job.
Brilliant.
So then I went back to lead the team, as you say, for 2000 and 2001.
So the podcast is called Success is a System, and a lot of people think, I haven't got what it takes, or how did this person become successful in what they wanted to do? This person win a gold medal, make £1 million, whatever the success is in their chosen area. What if we get to that point? What systems or approaches or behaviours kept you at the front? Because was it like raw ambition? Was it focus? Was it clean living? Or did you go out and get drunk with the boys?
It definitely wasn't clean living.
So, but people, I think, need to understand this, because they think they've got to live the life of a saint.
No, sure. The thing about a lot of people say that, right? So this is why I say fortunate, right? There's an element of right place, right time, right job, blah blah. That is all true. But the key things that you've kind of highlighted them already. For me personally, you have to work hard. I didn't mind working hard. It didn't feel like hard work, okay, because I was passionate about what I was doing. But you have to work hard. You have to be dedicated, right? And then you have to carve out your path. For me, when I joined the Royal Air Force, I remember it so well. At 18 years old, basically, I wanted to get through flying training every day, because every day is a test. You have a driving test every day, right? And that lasts 3 years, right? So I just wanted to get through flying training. Worked hard to get through flying training.
Literally 1,000 days almost.
Yeah, it's a long old slog, and it's hard, right? But work hard, play hard. Play hard is part. If you go to war with people, the same people that go to war are the same people that have a few beers in the bar, fall over, and do those kind of things. Same people.
And that bonds you as well. Doesn't it?
It's a really important.
The teamwork.
You're not a stiff, clean living. You can be, but the general mold is a team player, right?
Yeah.
The team player. The guy.
And I think you sometimes see more of a person or a colleague when the barriers are dropped. And I'm not saying you have to get drunk to do that.
No.
But sometimes when you're tired, you've had a little bit of drink, you've relaxed a bit, they see the real person, you see the real person, you connect at a different level sometimes.
That's why the Red Arrows selections are weak, because it's very difficult to hide for a week.
Yeah.
Right. So which I think is a very good point. But I think that for me, I never joined the Royal Air Force and said I'm going to be Red 1 in 13 years.
You just wanted to be the best.
I'm going to join the Royal Air Force and be a pilot. That's number one, right? Then as I went through flying training, and I think, actually, I can do this. I'm actually okay at this. Or I want to be a fast jet pilot. And when I'm a fast jet pilot, I want to be a Harrier pilot. And when I'm a Harrier pilot, now I want to be a weapons instructor. Now I want to be I was a Harrier display pilot. Now I want to be a Red Arrow. That's how my brain works.
And that's a really important system to get, because the old cliches of a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
Correct.
People say to, how do you run a marathon? Because I'm not built for marathon, I've done 6. But how do you run a marathon? How do you climb Everest? Or I haven't climbed Everest, but I've done Camp 2, done Kilimanjaro and Annapurna, the Ruwenzori. So, and when you're doing it, what you say is, I didn't suddenly run 26 miles.
Yeah.
I struggled to run 4.
Yes.
And then I did a 10K, which was 6, and then I did a half marathon. And this is over months, bit by bit. Or, when you're doing mountain climbing, it's get to that peak. And then I don't think I could ever get up there, but I think I can make it to the next peak,
Yeah.
And it is that set a target, get to your first goal. Because if you think I'm going to climb Everest, you would give up before you even started, because if someone said to you at 17, even though you had ambition and belief, you probably wouldn't have believed you could ever be Red One.
I didn't believe that, and I must admit, going through flying training, there were some days I didn't think I was going to complete flying training.
Hope you're enjoying Success is a System. Every Tuesday we launch it on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Drop us a note and tell us who you would like to see or hear on Success is a System, or what subjects you'd like us to cover to help you and your business. Success is a System. Like, subscribe, and make sure you get it every Tuesday for great lessons and systems that have made people wealthy, healthy, and successful.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I was going to give up and not try. So, so having achieved, when you're Red One, you think, oh, well, you've achieved everything. But I still hadn't, because my next thing was I want to command a frontline squadron. And I actually left the Red Arrows command job 1 year early because, I was effectively phoned up by the desk officer and said, you've got a couple of choices here, Andrew, but our advice is if you leave a year early, okay, on promotion, then you've got a really, really good chance of commanding a frontline squadron. And I went, is it guaranteed? They went, of course it's not, but you've got to stack the cards.
And there is a point at which, it was clearly hard work. It clearly took a lot of skill, a lot of focus, a lot of learning, but it all sounds fun to now, aerobatics and everything else. Suddenly you're going into a real war and dangerous scenarios, and you became a Harrier squadron commander.
Yeah, so my trade, in the Air Force was a fast jet frontline pilot. That was my trade. So I was a weapons instructor. That's what I did. Everybody remembers your 3 years in the Red Arrows, where I served for 20 years, right? So I did 5 years in the Red Arrows. So the majority of my time was flying on the front line, but people forget that. So I did finish my command tour in the Red Arrows. I did a staff tour, and then I went back to the front line to command a frontline Harrier squadron. And the dates of that were 2003 to 2006, which of course was post the towers falling down. So I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, which was unbelievably rewarding. The Red Arrows, fly around the world, having an amazing time as an ambassador.
Yeah.
Frontline, go to war.
Being shot at.
As a frontline squadron commander is, rewarding in a very, very different way, but an extremely rewarding way. And those are of the 2 things that I've done, I'll remember those jobs in the Royal Air Force, right up there, frontline squadron commander at war and, commanding the Red Arrows, 2 fantastic jobs.
And so you done that. At what point did the idea to set up the blades come about? Because now you've got your own business, 2XL, so commercial business, Coast Guard, search and rescue, but in between the military and that, you had the blades, which is the world's only aerobatics airline.
Yeah,
Tell us a bit about that idea, how it came about. Well, because that couldn't have been easy to raise money for.
No. Obviously, you've got the Red Arrows background. So there's a flying display team, and if I had £1 for every time someone said if you could bottle this and commercialise it, you'd be a millionaire, kind of thing. That's kind of a seed, if you like. But also, there's a few things that happened, and if you want to know what they were, my sister worked for Charles Foley, which is a Porsche dealership in Barbican, and she took me to Portsmouth. I think it was Portsmouth, where they had a powerboat which was sponsored by Porsche. I remember thinking that's cool. Talking to the guy, and he said, he was probably the commercial director or the marketing director, and he was saying, it's great, we love it, we get a lot of branding, and we'd love to do it in planes. And I'm like, it's an interesting concept. And then latterly, over a period in the old days, there were private display teams. The Marlborough team, if you remember, Rothman's team, the Toyota team, all really good civilian teams. And when I was in South Africa with the Reds on my first tour, I met a couple of guys flying pit specials that were branded by Smirnoff. and they were doing, just basically shows around Smirnoff branding. And at the time, my good friend from school was the accountant for IDV, the brewery, who owned.
Okay, yeah.
That's the connection. And I rang him up and said, what do you know about this? And he said, oh yeah, we'd love to do that in the UK. This is when I was about 30. So I contacted them and said, I put a proposal together. Is
that Diageo now?
I think it is Diageo. Yeah. And the proposal, when I look back at it, was Heath Robinson, but the concept was the same, right? I'd like to buy 2 planes. I'll get the planes. I'll brand them in Smirnoff and blah blah blah, and we'll go around the country doing it. And actually, I got some traction. They said, well, we got the red squares, and Smirnoff was not, Red Bull and vodka was not.
Yeah.
But it's gone mad, so they've done a good job. And they said, we would like to have a look at that. And I was like, oh, okay, this could actually work. But then I got the job as leader of Red Arrows, right? So then I stayed in the Air Force for the next sort of 6 years. Back burner. But during that time, that seed was there. And so the last kind of 5 years, my business colleague, Chris Norton, started flying Harriers with Chris Norton in 1991, did the weapons instructors course with Chris Norton. We both got kids. And both of us, the thing about the Royal Air Force, which is wonderful, he was the commander of one squadron, Harrier squadron. So both of us kind of the front end of promotion, doing well at the front end of the pack kind of thing. But both of us who have families, when you spent 20 years in the military, it's hard for your family life. It's hard. Also, the career progression through the Royal Air Force is a process. There's no short circuits. You can't suddenly become chief of the staff at 38, right? And both of us were kind of the same. It's like, well, we've had a great career, which we had. We're going to go to the staffs now, go to MOD, live in London, blah, 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 blah. Or do we pitch our wits against the commercial world? Let's
out into Civvy Street.
Yeah, what do you reckon? And we're like, how will we do that? And I, dusted off my business plan from 10 years ago and said, well, I had an idea to do this.
Yeah.
And then we evolved that for about our last 4 years in the service. Thinking over a beer, a glass of wine, chat. And in the last year, really, we did it seriously. So we wrote a proper business plan which said, buy 4 of these. We needed £1 million. Yeah. And then we'll set off on a journey. We found an angel, business angel, basically. He's still here today, Harrier Singh. He's the three of us own a third, effectively. He was the guy who put the money in investor parlance on a punt, right? Okay. And if you ask him today, he'll say, I did it because of the people, not because of the business plan, effectively. And we started our journey. We started with 4 airplanes and 6 people. We've now got 30 airplanes, 500 people.
And that's a really important system as well. So many. I was sat on lots of investment platforms. I've had my own investment platform, done lots of SEIS and EIS investments and early stage and so on. And so many people think, I've got the new Google, I've got the new Facebook. And they think just because it's a good idea, one, they're not the Google or the Facebook probably, but 2, you're looking at the person. Have you got the right team? And if it's a manufactured team, because you're not just looking at the individual, you're looking at how married together they are. And clearly you and Chris already had a connection, a bond, and you'd shown that you could work together. You could work really effectively together. You knew warts and all about each other. And often that's been the thing. I see lots of individual talented people, but they're not a team.
Yeah.
And that can destroy a business if they're not a team.
I think what I've learned is that everybody has ideas, right? And which loads of my friends say, I'm going to, start. And I go, great, right? You'll know this better than me. Turning an idea into reality is really hard, right? It's just hard, right? But you've got to do it.
It takes more money, takes longer than you thought, harder work.
It's harder work, right? So all those things accepted, but that's what Chris and I, we are dogmatic, that's what we do. You're absolutely right. The other thing people said to me was, it's not very good doing it with a partner. You'll end up falling out. We haven't fallen. We've fallen out loads of times, right? We've never fallen out, if you know what I mean. So we bash heads, but we never fall out. That's a really good point as well.
But interesting enough, if you speak to any marriage guidance, because it is a form of marriage, they say, we don't worry about the couples that squabble and argue. Yeah. We worry about the ones that have got to the point where they just can't be bothered to argue anymore. Yeah. If they've stopped talking, that's when it's dead. Yeah, and I think as long as they're squabbling, that's all right. Yeah, so, and then if you then apply the same kind of approach to 2XL, which was incremental growth, and there's some luck, right? So the things for us, both the financial crash of 2008, right, made our business fly. And now when you're in, when the public purse is really stretched, then we provide similar services. And because we've grown up through austerity, that's the time we've grown up in. We haven't got big glass-fronted buildings. We provide similar services
for a fraction of the cost. Guess what? We're really busy.
So take me through that. So you've gone from pilot, military, Red Arrows, frontline, into Civvy Street, and a lot of people struggle with that still today. There's a lot of charities needing to support people in that transition. That's successful, but it's aerobatics. How do you move from that into a really solid commercial where you're doing oil spill response, you're doing special operations, you're doing search and rescue? You know, that must have had a lot of networking, a lot of understanding that it's not just having fun in a plane, it's about building relationships, it's about putting the plan together, showing that there's a commercial value to it and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've said all the things that I've learned, right? So I don't really fly planes anymore, and the aerobatic team is, tiny, witty proportion of our business. Our business is a business, right?
Yeah.
The assets are aircraft. The assets are doing a job. Those jobs are critical to government infrastructure generally, or to oil and gas, or to the MOD. And we provide those services, whether it's like a hotel or they're just assets. Yeah. So what I've learned is standard business, right? So what we've learned is that in today's world, which is certainly the public sector is short of money, you need to provide high quality, value for money services that with good relationships. Yeah. And we keep those relationships by providing good services. And our business has grown, 25% a year, pretty much.
That's fantastic.
And it's primarily that growth is caused by, if you took the public sector as was pre-2008 or going forward, there is less and less money and the same requirements for those services.
But I think what was evident to me when we had a meal a few weeks ago, over a few pints and chatting away, and I'm always like, every day's a school day and I'm trying to learn and trying to get to know people, and that a lot of people don't realise what they're doing that's right or what they're doing that's wrong. Now, as a behavioural profiler, doctor of education, I'm kind of trying to weed all of that. But I guess on some spectrum somewhere, because I can't kind of not be doing it. I can't switch off in that sense. But what was evident was that you were moving, you were looking ahead and thinking, where next? Yeah. Because I know when we were talking, you're even now with search and rescue, you're looking at drone technology, you're looking at how we can move beyond piloted planes to where's the future going, where's the tech going, who's got the best tech, where in the world has got the best tech, how do we evolve? So, and that's the problem. So many people, they want to stay where they are, where it's safe, where it's known, and then they're not taking the next risk.
Yeah, I think we look 5 years ahead, right? So, the way that search and rescue is done now is a system. It's no longer, traditionally in the military, a yellow helicopter plucked people out to sea, that was search and rescue. Now it's a system of command and control, drones, helicopters, and fixed wing, all linked together with mountain rescue and RNLI, right? It's a system. Yeah. That system has been thought about for 6 years. The system is going to be implemented in 2024. Yeah. We've been thinking about it since 2017. Yeah. So the reason I think we've won the contract with our partners Bristow is because that was our plan. Our plan wasn't to go, we're going to provide you 10 helicopters. We're going to provide you a system. That system approach will provide you what you need and good value for money to the taxpayer because it's efficient. When the fixed wing can talk to the RNLI, can talk to the mountain rescue, can talk to the helicopter.
It's all joined up.
It's all joined up as one system. But that requires a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, and that's the point I want to make, because I spend a lot of time. I mean, I mentor about 46 different businesses. Between 40 to 50 is my sweet spot at any one time, and I'm looking at them. The biggest challenge I have with business, especially established business, is getting them out of today and the past. They're either kind of suffering with imposter syndrome of something that happened in the past. I'm not good enough. I had the wrong upbringing, and that's holding them back. Or they're caught in a problem of the past that they've not let go or rectified, or they're firefighting every single day. And whilst I understand that you've got to be dealing with the issues of the day, one of the things I try to say is at least 10% needs to be in the future. Yeah. And they say, oh yeah, well, 10%. And I say, you're doing 10%. And I say, well, I don't know. And I say, well, let me put it into context for you. If there's 5 days a week, and most people in business are working more than 5 days a week, but if there's 5 days, that means at least half a day every week needs to be 3, 4, 5 years in the future. What are we going to be doing then? Where are we heading? Where might we go? And there might be choices. But so many people aren't even looking 3 months ahead, let alone 3 years ahead. And I think that's where as we all know, especially when you have kids, suddenly that 10 years has gone by. Not 10 days or 10 weeks or 10 months. It goes like that. And if you're not living at least 10 or 20% of your time in the future and adapting, evolving, planning for where you need to be, you will become outdated very quickly. And so clearly you and Chris were doing that. Was that from external advisory? Was that the military training? Or was that just always looking for the next?
I think it's a combination of all those things. And when you said all those things that you shouldn't do, everyone does that too. We was talking to you today. We firefight regularly because sometimes we have to, but we do try and look ahead. Okay, and the good thing about there's three of us, myself, Chris, and Harrier are the originals. We've got a board of 5, but the original Harrier is wealthy enough that it wouldn't affect him if this were to fail. So he can have a very long view, right? And he's very good at saying...
He's not anchored by the problems of today in the same way that you might be feeling.
And he knows nothing about aviation, right? Nothing. He's a property man. Yeah. So he has a refreshing view, right?
Well, and that's a great segue as to why I have a bias here. As a mentor, I say that's the value of having someone who is emotionally unattached.
Yeah, agreed.
Who is financially unattached.
Agreed.
So I'm going to focus on what should happen, irrespective of what you might be experiencing.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I think Chris and I are both like this actually, we're quite open-minded. So, I love listening to people. I love it. And I don't get offended. I don't mind what people say because, advice is free, right? And you can take it or you can leave it. But what you shouldn't do is shut people down, right? So I try and listen to everybody because there are so many people out there with so much experience that why wouldn't you listen? And I think that we've tried to do that. So we try to look a long way ahead. We try to listen. We try to shape our business with a long-term strategy. We have a vision and strategy. We try and follow it. And we try and remind the company to follow it. And in that way, people can stay kind of focused on what we're trying to achieve over a period.
I mean, it's super impressive, and I'm conscious of time, but we haven't even got into your VIP charter, so it's not all small planes. You got 757, 737?
Yeah, we've got 2 737s that do VIP charter, and what charter does for our company is primarily providing special operations to government services, generally. And so we provide a 727 flying oil spill response. Today it is flying in Djibouti, that's where it is, doing a job, but that is it's an availability contract, doesn't fly very often, right? So we must provide throughout the rest of our company, engineers, pilots, ops, rampies, everybody needs to practice every day. Our airline, which 2 VIP 737s, they make good money, but basically they fly every day all around the world, taking football teams and pop bands and God knows what else. And the point is we're running blood through the veins of our company using our charter airline, right? So the charter airline is great. That's exactly what it does. But the majority of our business provides a specialist service, which sometimes are low utilization.
And if someone just Googles 2XL, they'll find all of those services, on that website.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am conscious of time. And when we had a meal and a few pints, it was lovely to be doing that in your son Ralph's pub, the Georgia Dragon, just outside Uppingham. Great pub. He's clearly got a business head on him.
Yeah.
And you must be a very proud dad. But what's really good is that it was clear that you were there to support, but you weren't stealing his dream. You weren't telling him what he needed to do. I'm sure you occasionally give him your opinion. That's a fatherly thing to do. Yeah. But if you were looking back at any child of 17, that's not fair, young adult of 17, man of 20, person who's 40 and thinks they want to change a career, what would you be saying to him? What 3 things do you think are the most important for success, satisfaction, and fulfillment?
So if we've covered this through this chat, right? But Ralph is my son who has the pub. Okay, that was his passion, right? Didn't go to university, followed his passion. Therefore, so passion number 1. That leads to dedication, right? Because he's dedicated in what he does, and you can see that. I can see that, and I am proud of him for he's dedicated to what he does, and he's not afraid to give it a go. Do you know what I mean? So, and I say to him, I try, like as any father should, try and let him make the mistakes and recover them himself if he can, help him with advice if I need to. But if those things that he does, that as one example, are attributes that are applicable to all.
So passion, dedication.
Yeah, passion, dedication, and hard work, I would say. But that's probably the same thing. But passion, dedication, and hard work, and listen. Going forward, and listen to people, right? So I think, again, that's a really useful thing to do.
That's incredible. I could talk for hours, but I know we said we wouldn't take up too much of your time. Love to come back at some point in the future, and I hope you've enjoyed the session too. If you have, please like, share, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Success is a System.